And we'll go from there.
All right.
Good.
Who hasn't signed up on my sheet yet? Please make sure that you do, and there's a spot on there for your email you can or cannot put on there if you so desire. If you put it on there, I'm going to send you an email and say, hey, thanks for letting me come out. That way you'll have an email from me and you can start sending me questions or whatever when we're done. My name is Master Chief Rodney Dilt. And if you ask me some funky medical questions, I look at you like, it's because I'm a Navy cop. I'm an anti-terrorism specialist. I've been in the Navy 27 years, and this is how they got me to stay in the Navy, to be a recruiter in South Carolina, because I have 4 grandkids in North Carolina. And this is the closest I've ever lived to my family in 27 years. So, but I met your professor last year, and he was kind enough to let me talk to the group last year, again this year. I've lived in 5 countries, including Bahrain, Japan, and Iceland. And lived in Diego Garcia, which is a British territory. Cuba. Hawaii is sort of like a foreign country. And then I've lived in New Jersey, which is a foreign country. Georgia, Virginia, Tennessee, and now South Carolina. So that's all the place I've lived since I've been in the Navy. And I've been on 2 ships. Okay? In 27 years, 2 ships.
For how long?
2 years on the first one, 2 years on the second one. So, and I say that to say this. Medical professionals rarely go on more than 1 ship in a 20-year career. Okay? Most people try to get to a ship if they're going to do a career because it helps them, you know, down the road for promotions and stuff. The book that I passed out to y'all, you don't have to look through it right now, but there's a generic on the inside. There's going to be some generic information on the pages. And in the back, there's inserts. So if you're looking to be a dentist, there's an insert for dentist. If you're going to be a physician, there's one for that. For the different allied health fields, pharmacy, etc., there's info in there. It's general info, and it's made for you to, it's like a car ad on TV. They give you just enough information to make you pick the phone up or go see the salesman so they can corral you and tell you all the good stuff, okay? So there's some good general information in there. So this is something you can refer to when we're done. But I wanted to point out the big white ship. That is a ship that you all could go on. There's 2 of them. There's one on either coast. And those ships go out for humanitarian missions. So if you want to do humanitarian type stuff, the military and the Navy in particular are very good places to go to do that. Okay? All right, so let me get back on track. How many people are seniors? I know there's at least 1. 2 seniors? Okay, just checking. And then a lot of juniors. Freshmen, where's the other freshmen? Freshmen. Sophomores? Sophomore. Okay, what are you?
I'm in between.
In between which?
Sophomore and freshman.
Okay, gotcha. And what are you? Junior?
Junior.
Okay. The good news for everybody but the 2 seniors is this information is going to give you stuff to think about for at least a year, for some of y'all a couple of years. For you 2 seniors, what are y'all looking at doing when you graduate?
Med school.
Med school and
Med school.
Have y'all already done your MCATs? Have you already applied?
I'm going an extra year, so.
Okay, so where did you apply to, if I could be nosy?
Georgetown, Wake Forest, Vanderbilt, GW, and Maryland.
Okay.
I'm from Maryland.
Okay, whereabouts?
Bethesda,
Okay,
right near NIH.
that's, you know, that'd be a good place to do your residency. That's where your family's at. Bethesda's also where the Navy has one of its 3 teaching hospitals. So, all right, good to go. The programs we have, how many are thinking med school? Because I already know you 2. Okay, and what are you thinking?
Dental.
Dental.
Dental? Nurse wivery.
Just midwifery. No nurse.
Exactly. Wivery. Okay. So cool. Did you raise your hand for one?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't paying attention to that peripheral vision thing. All right. If you go to 90% of dental and medical schools, you're going to want the first program I talked to you about. And that's what I'll probably spend most of my time on. It's called the Health Profession Scholarship. Notice I didn't say it's a Navy scholarship, or the Air Force scholarship, or the Army scholarship. It's the Armed Forces Health Profession Scholarship. And it pretty much works the same for the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force as far as we put you through 4 years of school, we get 4 years payback. Okay? That covers tuition, books, equipment, labs, fees, And anything that, let's say you're at Georgetown, every Georgetown first year student is required to pay for X, Y, or Z. The Navy pays for that. If it's an optional book or an optional piece of software, you'd have to pay for that yourself. But if it's a required item for everybody, the Navy pays for it. That includes the health insurance that you get from the school. When you go to medical school or dental school, you're going to have health insurance. Now, the health insurance is not the Navy or the military health insurance, it's the school's health insurance. Okay, but still you're not paying for it, so that's cool. The stipend, you guys may have heard about the stipend that we give you to live on. It's $1,997 as of the 1st of October. Next October, if our economy is still in shambles, it may not go up. Last year it was $1,907, this year it went up $90. So it may or may not go up again. So that will keep you well stocked with ramen, some pizza, maybe TGI Fridays every once in a while. And you'll probably be getting bummed off of by your roommates and friends that are paying for their own school. Why even take the HPSP scholarship? Any idea? What does it cost to go to school nowadays? Med school or dental school?
Depends on what
No,
school.
depends on which.
Depends on what school, but I'll give you a good way to gauge this. When you finish med school, you're going to have a mortgage, the equivalent of a mortgage. You're going to have a couple $100,000 in debt at 6% interest. It takes 30 years to pay off a mortgage unless you're doing double payments and things like that. So that's basically a house that you're not living in, a house without walls that you're going to be dragging around. Okay, so the scholarship is going to create a debt-free learning experience. You're not going to be stressing out about stuff, because I didn't know this until I started recruiting. You can't go to school while you're in med school or dental school. I mean, you can't go to work, excuse me. So you don't have any way to make any extra money for that ramen and pizza. So you're taking loans out for that. You're taking loans out for everything while you're in school. That's why it gets so expensive. And it doesn't matter if you go to USC or if you go to MUSC or Georgetown. It's going to be a couple $100,000 minimum. Okay? An advantage to the military, residency programs. Do y'all know how much a resident makes out in town when they go from med school to their first year residency? Anybody want to venture a guess?
40? 35,000.
40 is pretty close for the first year. It's usually between 40 and 45 for the first year. And if you're in a 4-year residency, it's getting up to around 55, depending on where you're at. But you're paying for your health insurance, your dental insurance, if there's any malpractice fees that you've got to pay, living expenses, the mortgage that you don't have a roof over your head for. See what I'm saying? It's kind of, well, a Navy resident, and I'm going to say Navy in particular, is going to make around 60 to 65, depending on which of the 3 teaching hospitals they go to. They're a full lieutenant in the Navy, they get a housing allowance, they get their basic pay, and they get a food allowance. The housing allowance and the food allowance is tax-free. They're not spending $600 a month for health and dental insurance because that's free. They're not paying malpractice insurance. Okay? There's a 30% pay differential at least between a military resident and a civilian resident. So they manage to go into the military. Free money, no debt, and you're making more money than your buddy that you went to med school with without going, oh crap, I have to put a roof over my head. So that's all really cool. It sounds great. Too good to be true. What's the catch? Okay? And the catch isn't really that difficult. The catch is for 4 years of med school, we get 4 years as an attending physician. Keyword, attending physician. So if you're a resident, you are not an attending physician. You're a student, basically. Okay, a superpowered student, but a student nonetheless. So let's say the average residency is 4 years. Okay, which, there's a 3-year family practice, there's a 6-year orthopedic, but a lot of them are about 4 years. So we'll use 4 as the standard. You come in, you go to med school for 4 years in the Navy, you do 4 years residency with the Navy, and then you do 4 years payback. And then you walk away, you're done. Okay? If you happen to do an orthopedic surgery residency, that's 6 years. So you end up paying the Navy 6 years as an attending physician. Basically, the way we look at it is the 4 years of residency, the average, that's kind of a tit for tat. But any extra training we give you, the extra 2 years of residency, we're paying you good money and training you very well. So we're going to get the extra 2 years on the backside. So that's 12 years. So anywhere from 4 to 12 years that you're going to, 8 to 12 years you're going to be wearing this. Okay? Now, let's say you decide to do 8 more years after that 12. You can retire from the military at 20 years. Okay? This is one huge advantage. You get 50% of your basic pay for life. You get free medical and dental for life. And when I say free, I kind of lie. It's actually about $450 a year that you pay for your insurance, as opposed to $450 a month, which would not be real great health insurance. An example, my dad just got out of the ICU a couple of days ago. In the last 2 years, he's been in the ICU for about 40 days. And he paid maybe $150 because he's retired military. Yes.
So your years spent as a resident
Counts.
count towards your retirement?
You're on active duty.
It's beautiful.
So that's what I'm saying. 20 years isn't that long if you do a 4-year residency and then you do your next 4 years. And I'll be honest with you, Navy physicians at 20-year mark are making a couple $100,000. And guess what? They don't have to worry about Betty, the receptionist, Maggie, the nurse, the person doing their paperwork and their bills. They don't have to worry about the lights being on. They don't have to worry about leasing or buying equipment. They're doing medicine for 20 years without headaches, without malpractice requirement, or worries. They get all their education paid for. They do continuing medical education. They get sent to, like every year you get like a week or two where they send you to the conferences for orthopedic surgeons or for neurology, whatever. And you don't have the hassles. And a couple $100,000 a year is pretty good money when you don't have all the associated headaches to go with it. Plus you get 30 days vacation. Plus your family gets free medical and dental. When you all decide it's time to have kids, whether it's your wife or whether it's you, babies cost money to produce, whether it's down the road or having a baby. It's like, what, 10, 20 grand for having a baby in a hospital. You do that in a military hospital, you don't pay anything. So for the ladies, you get 6 weeks off maternity leave. For the guys, you get 10 days paternity leave now. So we've progressed a little bit. Specialties, they're in here, but you name a specialty, and if we don't have it, we'll let you go to a residency out in town, basically.
I was going to ask about that because trauma isn't on there.
Hold on, let me see.
If it's the very first one?
Well, we call it emergency medicine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, matter of fact, there's a trauma surgeon who's on the staff at MUSC. He's 40 years old, talking about coming into the Navy. So he wants to go and work on folks for a couple of years. He's not going to do 20 years. He says, I feel like I need to go and do this. So if I could sell his wife, I'm going to get him in the Navy for 4 years. So we have that. Now, a couple things I'm going to tell you about that when the Air Force or the Army came and talked to y'all, did they tell you the 3-letter word called GMO about the Navy? General Medical Officer? He did?
Yeah.
Okay, what did he say?
He said if you fail out of your residency, then you become a GMO.
Okay, that's wrong. Let me explain residency so everybody understands. Whether you're a civilian medical student or you're in a military program, you have to match for residency when you're in your 4th year. Okay? The military match, Army, Navy, Air Force, is done in December. You find out before Christmas if you match for your residency. The civilian match you find out in March. Last year it was March 17th. Just because you apply for residency, regardless of military or civilian, doesn't mean you're getting it. You may want to be a radiologist and that's all you want to do. And you try to match, guess what? If you don't have the scores, you don't have the recommendations and stuff, you're not going to be a radiologist. Not that year. Okay? What the military does, the Army, I think, says this. I'm pretty sure the Air Force does as well. They guarantee you're going to go through residency after med school. Did he tell you you're going to go to residency when you finish?
I think you said you had like 97%.
97%, okay. What the Navy does is when you match, everybody does PGY1, you get ready for your step 3 and all that stuff. Then you find out if you're going to actually continue through residency. And I'll give you the example I was taught in school. Ophthalmology is a very small specialty in the Navy. They do like 2 residents a year. Well, if 8 people apply for that, what happens to the other 6?
They wait.
They can wait. That's the first option. And then they can that's when they go do some GMO stuff, General Medical Officer. They either go to a ship, they can go with the Marines, they can become a flight surgeon, or they can become a diving medical officer. Okay? I'll explain those in a minute. They can wait and go into one of those. They can say, well, my second choice would be X, Y, or Z, and if they have an opening, they can go into that. Okay? So you wait and go GMO, you take your second option, or you go through because you were selected for it. Now the GMO program is designed to give us physicians to work with the Marines and on ships. Okay? In 2011, it's supposedly